paradrama tales. My wife, who's been on a successful weight loss journey, joined a new gym, but with a man she met online. He's married with kids and she sees no issue with working out together. When I asked to see their conversation, she deleted it. I'm not sure what to think. What happens when a simple weight loss journey leads to unexpected tension in a relationship? A wife's excitement about joining a new gym and working out with a man she met online raises more questions than answers. How far is too far when trust is tested by something as innocent as fitness? For the past year, my wife had been focused on her health in a way I had never seen before. It started slowly, small changes in her diet, walking more and drinking more water. But it wasn't until she shed about 30 pounds that I started to notice just how committed she had become. She had always struggled with her weight, as many do. We both knew that health wasn't just about how you looked. It was about feeling better in your body, gaining energy, and knowing that you're taking care of yourself. But for her, this journey was different. She seemed to have finally found the motivation to stick with it, and the results were clear. Her confidence was growing, and so was her excitement about continuing this new chapter. One evening, she mentioned she had been thinking about going to the gym. She had always talked about it, but there was a hesitation in her voice that I understood. The thought of joining a gym can be intimidating, especially when it feels like you're not where you want to be physically, but this time she seemed serious. I was genuinely happy for her. I thought it would be a great idea for us to go together. I didn't have the same level of dedication to fitness as she did, but I thought that working out together could give us a chance to bond. We had been through so much, and having a shared activity could bring us even closer. However, the next day, she dropped a bombshell on me. She had already joined a gym, but not the one I was thinking of. It wasn't a problem at all. She could go wherever she felt most comfortable. But what caught my attention was what she said next. She had already met someone through social media. He was offering to help her with her workouts and guidance in the gym. My first reaction wasn't jealousy or distrust. It was more confusion. Who was this person and why was he offering to help her? It seemed like a strange arrangement. She didn't seem to think much of it, though. She explained that he wasn't a personal trainer or anything like that. He had just reached out to her, offering some advice. He was married with 2 kids, she mentioned, but I didn't know this person at all. As she spoke, I tried to maintain an open mind. After all, this was her weight loss journey, and if she felt comfortable with this new connection, it wasn't my place to control it. But the more I processed the situation, the more uneasy I felt. Something didn't sit right with me. I wasn't trying to be controlling or overly protective, but I couldn't ignore the fact that my wife was starting to develop a relationship with a man I didn't know. It wasn't just about her getting fit. It was about who she was turning to for help. Why was she asking advice from a man she had just met online? Was it that important to her to get this help from someone else, especially a stranger? And why wasn't I more involved in her journey? I tried to push those thoughts aside. Maybe I was just being paranoid. It's easy to let your insecurities get the best of you, especially when someone you love is trying something new. But something about it nagged at me. I didn't like the idea of her spending time with someone I didn't know, especially if I didn't fully understand why it was necessary. The last thing I wanted was for her to feel like I was trying to control her or hold her back. But there was one thing that I couldn't ignore. The more she spoke about this new man, the more she seemed detached from me. It wasn't intentional on her part. I knew that. She was focused on her goals, and that's a good thing. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being left out. I had always been supportive of her weight loss journey, but now, it seemed like she had a new support system that I wasn't part of. The dynamic had shifted, and I didn't know how to navigate this new territory. She was excited about her progress, and I wanted to share that excitement with her. But I couldn't help feeling left behind. I realized that this wasn't just about fitness anymore, it was about a change in our relationship. A change that I hadn't been prepared for. I tried to hide it, to keep my feelings to myself. I didn't want to make her feel guilty for something that was her choice. She was on her own path, and I needed to respect that. But deep down, I had this nagging feeling that this was just the beginning of a much bigger shift. How was I going to fit into this new phase of her life? That night, after the gym conversation, I found myself awake long after she had gone to bed, staring at the ceiling, lost in my own thoughts. It was hard to put into words what I was feeling. There was so much change happening, and I didn't know how to keep up with it. Was this just a moment of growth for her, or was it the start of something that could drive us apart? As I sat there processing everything my wife had told me, a wave of uncertainty washed over me. On the surface, everything seemed fine. She was excited, motivated by her weight loss progress and eager to take her fitness journey to the next level. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting. I had always been supportive of her health goals, cheering her on from the sidelines. But now it felt like I was being left behind. She had lost 30 pounds, and I was incredibly proud of her. I knew how hard she had worked to get to this point. Watching her transform, gaining confidence and energy had been inspiring. But now, as she dove into this next chapter with the gym, she was doing it without me. She had chosen to join a new gym, a place I didn't know, with a man I didn't know. This was something I wasn't a part of, and it left me feeling strangely out of place in my own life. I had always thought that we'd tackle challenges like this together. The gym was something we could do as a team, building not only our bodies but also our relationship. We could support each other, motivate each other, and be each other's cheerleaders. But now my wife was going to a gym where I wasn't involved. Not only that, but she was going to be working out with a man she had just met online. And while she insisted he wasn't a trainer, that didn't ease the discomfort I felt. I tried not to show it. I didn't want to come across as controlling or insecure. After all, she was trying to better herself, and who was I to get in the way of that? But as much as I tried to convince myself that this was just a normal part of her journey, I couldn't help but feel disconnected. It was as if the woman I had been so close to was slipping away, and I was being left behind. She had always been the one to encourage me to work out more. I had the occasional workout routine, but I never took it as seriously as she did. Maybe this was my chance to get more involved in her fitness journey, to be the partner who joined her at the gym and motivated her when things got tough. But instead, she had decided to go with someone else. I tried to be rational about it, but I couldn't stop the thoughts that kept creeping into my mind. Why was she turning to a stranger on social media for help? What made this guy more capable of helping her than me? The more I thought about it, the more it bothered me. I knew that he wasn't a personal trainer. He was just some guy offering help. But the fact that she was willing to work out with him, someone I had never even met, made me feel like I wasn't enough. I had always been the one she turned to for advice and support. We had built a life together, and our relationship was one that thrived on shared experiences. Now, she was creating these new experiences with someone I knew nothing about, and I wasn't sure how I fit into the picture anymore. My wife had mentioned that this man was married with kids, and I told myself that there was nothing to worry about. But even with those reassurances, a small voice in my head kept asking, what if there was more to it? Was this just innocent help, or was there something else going on? She had deleted the social media conversation between them, which only added fuel to the fire. Why did she feel the need to delete the conversation? If everything was innocent, why hide it from me? I didn't want to appear controlling or overly jealous, but I also couldn't ignore how uncomfortable this whole situation made me feel. My wife was an adult, capable of making her own decisions, and I respected that. But there was a difference between supporting her journey and feeling completely disconnected from it. I realized I was more upset about the emotional distance this situation was creating than anything else. I didn't want to create unnecessary tension, so I kept my concerns to myself. But as she continued to talk about the gym and her plans with this man, I couldn't help but feel like I was no longer the person she was sharing her excitement with. It was like she had found a new outlet for her energy, and I wasn't included. At first, I kept telling myself that I shouldn't be so upset. She was doing something positive for herself, and I should be supportive. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't just about her gym membership. It was about the change in our relationship. She was growing, and I was happy for her. But it felt like I was being left behind. We had always been a team, and now I felt like I was standing on the sidelines, watching as she moved forward without me. I knew I needed to talk to her about how I was feeling. I couldn't keep this inside, but I also didn't want to come across as insecure or controlling. I just wanted to understand why she felt it was necessary to get help from someone else, someone I didn't know, instead of including me in her journey. In the end, I realized that this wasn't just about the gym or the man she was meeting. It was about feeling like I was being shut out. And that was something I needed to address before it turned into something bigger than it had to be. When my wife first mentioned that she'd met someone on social media who was offering to help with her workouts, I didn't know what to think. Part of me wanted to be supportive. After all, she was taking her health seriously, and that's a good thing. But there was something about it that didn't sit right with me. A stranger offering unsolicited advice and support, it felt odd. She explained that the man wasn't a personal trainer or professional, just a regular guy who reached out to her, offering to show her some exercises. According to her, He had a family, was married with 2 kids, and had no ill intentions. She didn't seem bothered by any of this, and to her, it was simply someone lending a hand in her fitness journey. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it than that. I couldn't help but wonder why she felt the need to go outside of our shared life to find help for something that we could have worked on together. If she was truly serious about improving her fitness, why wasn't she asking me, or at least inviting me to join her at the gym? I had always been supportive of her weight loss goals, even if I didn't go as often as I should have. Why was she turning to a stranger for support? Especially when she knew how much I cared about her health. The situation began to gnaw at me, and the more I thought about it, the more uncomfortable I felt. The fact that she was so open to working out with someone I didn't know, and someone she had just met online, raised questions that I couldn't ignore. Was I overacting? Probably. But I couldn't help it. She was stepping into a world that I wasn't part of, and that made me feel alienated. What unsettled me even more was when she deleted their conversation on social media. She explained that it was to avoid tension, not wanting him to see when she was online. But that didn't make sense to me. If there was nothing to hide, why not leave it? That felt like an attempt to cover something up, even if it wasn't intentional. In that moment, I realized that this situation wasn't just about fitness. It was about trust, transparency, and the boundaries we had in our relationship. I needed answers, not because I didn't trust her, but because something about the situation just didn't sit right with me. As I sat there thinking about everything, I couldn't shake the feeling that something about this situation was off. It wasn't about my wife's desire to get healthier. I fully supported that. What bothered me was the fact that she was choosing to connect with a stranger, someone I didn't know, for help with something so personal. And the more I reflected on it, the more my gut told me this wasn't just a simple workout arrangement. My wife had been on a weight loss journey for a while, and I'd been there to cheer her on every step of the way. But now, she was taking this next step without me. She had joined a different gym, a place I wasn't familiar with, and was working out with a man she had just met online. He wasn't a trainer or professional, he was just some guy who offered advice. Why would she turn to him for help when we could have worked together on this? I couldn't ignore the small voice in my head that said, "This doesn't feel right." Why wasn't she sharing this experience with me? I tried to convince myself that it was innocent, but the more I thought about it, the more the situation didn't sit well with me. She had mentioned this man was married with kids, but I didn't know him, and that made me feel uneasy. How much time was she spending with him? Was there any chance of emotional involvement, even unintentionally? The situation didn't seem to be about her fitness goals anymore. It felt like there was something more at play, something I wasn't a part of. And I started questioning whether I could trust her, or even trust myself. Was I overreacting? Maybe. But the fact that she had deleted their conversation didn't help. She said it was because she didn't want him to see when she was online, but it didn't make sense. If everything was innocent, why would she feel the need to hide it? The more I reflected, the more I realized that trust wasn't just about believing she wasn't hiding something. It was about transparency and honesty. I needed to feel included in her journey, not left in the dark. And that was the part I couldn't ignore. I felt excluded, and that was eroding the trust I had in our relationship. As the days passed, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling in my chest. The more I thought about my wife's new gym buddy, the more unsettled I became. I tried to push it down, telling myself it was just my insecurity acting up. But something about it didn't sit right with me. It wasn't just that she was working out with a man I didn't know. It was the secrecy surrounding it. When she mentioned that she had deleted the conversation between them, it raised a red flag. She explained that she didn't want him to see when she was online, so she thought deleting it would avoid any unnecessary issues between us. But that didn't make sense. If she had nothing to hide, why delete the conversation in the first place? Why couldn't she simply leave it open and transparent? I thought long and hard about how I was feeling. I knew I trusted her, but there was a lingering doubt gnawing at me. I had asked her to see the conversation between her and this guy, and she seemed reluctant. She had told me that it was deleted for good reasons, but that didn't sit well with me. What could be so bad about showing me a simple conversation? Why did she feel the need to hide it, even if she said it wasn't anything important? I realized I had to ask her again. Not because I didn't trust her, but because I needed to understand why she was so secretive about it. It wasn't just about the message, it was about the lack of transparency. We had always been open with each other about everything. Why was this different? That evening, when we were sitting down after dinner, I brought it up again. "Hey, I know you deleted the conversation between you and this guy from the gym, but I still don't really understand why. Can you just explain it to me? I don't want to make a big deal out of it, but I just want to feel like we're being honest with each other." Her face tightened slightly, and she hesitated before responding. "I didn't think it was a big deal," she said, her voice softer than usual. "I just didn't want to cause any unnecessary tension between us. I've told you everything you need to know." I could hear the defensiveness in her voice, and it made me even more uneasy. It wasn't just about her meeting someone new or talking to a stranger. It was about how she was handling it. It felt like she was avoiding the conversation altogether. Like she didn't want to confront the discomfort I was feeling. It wasn't just that I wanted to know what was said, it was that she had made a choice to keep it from me, even though I had clearly expressed how I felt about it. I pressed a little further, trying to stay calm. "But I still don't understand. If there's nothing to hide, why not just show me? Why delete it? I'm not trying to control you or invade your privacy, but this is making me feel like something's off." She sighed, clearly frustrated. "I didn't think it was necessary, okay? I thought it would just make things easier if I deleted it. I don't want to make things harder between us. But if it's really that important to you, I'll show you the conversation. It's nothing. I promise." She pulled out her phone and opened up her social media. As she scrolled through the messages, I could feel my heart racing. I didn't know what I was expecting to find, but my mind was racing with 1,000 thoughts. Was I overacting? Or was this a sign that something wasn't right? She handed me the phone, and I read through the conversation quickly. There it was, a few friendly messages, mostly about gym tips and exercises. Nothing overtly inappropriate, nothing that screamed red flags. But it wasn't just the content of the conversation that bothered me. It was the way she had deleted it without any explanation beforehand. The fact that she had hidden it from me felt like a breach of trust, even if there was no harm in the actual exchange. As I handed the phone back to her, I felt a sense of relief, but also frustration. "It's not that there's something bad in these messages," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's just the fact that you didn't share it with me from the start. I know you're not doing anything wrong, but when you hide things like this, it makes me question if I'm being too trusting." She looked at me, her eyes softening. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. I didn't think it would matter, but I see now that it does. I should have just shown you." I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and still lingering discomfort. I knew this wasn't the end of it, but maybe it was a step in the right direction. Trust wasn't just about what was said or done. It was about how we communicated with each other. And while the conversation didn't reveal anything sinister, the way it had been handled spoke volumes about how we both needed to be more transparent, especially when it came to things that made one of us uncomfortable. As the days went by, I found myself unable to shake the unease that had settled in. I had asked my wife about the messages, and while she had explained herself, I still couldn't fully quiet the anxiety gnawing at me. I knew she wasn't doing anything wrong, but the way she handled the situation, the secrecy, and the reluctance to show me the conversation left me feeling unsettled. Was I obsessing over something that didn't matter, or was I right to be concerned? Part of me told myself I was just overreacting. After all, it was a simple conversation about gym tips, right? But another part of me couldn't ignore the feeling that something had changed. She was working out with a man she barely knew, and now, more than ever, I was questioning the dynamics of our relationship. This wasn't just about the gym, it was about how I felt left out of her personal growth and the growing distance between us. I couldn't help but feel like I had been blindsided. Why was she turning to a stranger for help, someone I didn't know, rather than including me in her fitness journey? I had always been there for her, even if I wasn't as committed to the gym as she was. Wasn't I supposed to be her partner, not just in life, but in these moments too? Was she pushing me out of the equation without even realizing it? I tried to talk to her again, but each conversation seemed to lead to more questions. Every time she reassured me, I still felt the weight of the situation pressing down on me. She was becoming increasingly frustrated with my questioning, and I could see why. She had made it clear that this was her journey, her process. But I still couldn't shake the feeling that something was being hidden, even if unintentionally. And each time I questioned her about it, I felt like I was making a bigger deal out of nothing. I knew she hadn't done anything outright wrong, but the secrecy and the lack of transparency were starting to feel like a betrayal, no matter how small. She had removed the conversation, and though she assured me there was nothing to hide, I couldn't ignore the fact that it made me feel like I wasn't trusted. As much as I tried to remind myself that I needed to let go of these doubts, the more I fixated on them. Every time she mentioned the gym, every time she spoke about this man, I felt that knot in my stomach tighten. I wanted to trust her, but trust isn't just about believing the best in someone. It's about believing the openness and honesty of the relationship. And in this case, I wasn't feeling either. The more I questioned myself, the more I began to wonder, was I crossing the line between concern and obsession? I didn't want to be the overbearing husband who couldn't trust his wife to do something as simple as going to the gym with a friend. But I also couldn't ignore the emotional distance this was creating. Was I overacting by asking to see the messages? Or was I simply trying to protect my relationship and ensure that boundaries were being respected? It was a tough place to be. I knew I was walking a fine line between being concerned for our relationship and obsessing over something that might not even be a problem. But the truth was, I couldn't just ignore the discomfort I was feeling. I had to find a way to navigate this situation without letting it take control of my thoughts or my relationship. After days of internal turmoil, I realized that what I was really struggling with wasn't necessarily the gym or the man she met online. It wasn't even about the messages or the deleted conversation anymore. What was at the heart of all this was communication, and how our ability to communicate openly was being tested. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much we had both been holding back. Me with my concerns, and her with her need for independence. I could see how my constant questioning was making her feel trapped. She was frustrated with me for not trusting her, and honestly, I couldn't blame her. It wasn't about whether or not I trusted her. It was about my fear of feeling excluded from a part of her life that was becoming more and more important to her. It wasn't just about fitness, it was about the emotional distance growing between us. What I needed to do was simple. I had to set healthy boundaries, not only for myself but for our relationship. I couldn't let this situation spiral into something bigger than it had to be. I needed to express my feelings in a way that didn't come across as controlling but as a partner wanting to be included, wanting to be emotionally involved in her growth and development. It was important that I showed her I respected her journey but also needed to be part of it. In whatever way I could. I took a step back and thought about what had really upset me. It wasn't the gym or the man. It was the sense that I was being left behind. I had always been there for her, and now it felt like I was watching from the sidelines. If I had been more involved, if we had communicated better from the start, maybe this wouldn't have become such a sensitive topic. But I knew now that this was more than just a gym membership. It was about feeling valued and respected in the relationship. When we finally sat down and talked about it, I tried to be as clear as I could. I want you to have your own space and pursue your goals. But I also need to feel included in what's happening. I want to be part of your journey. When you keep things from me or make decisions without including me, it feels like I'm being shut out. She listened, but I could see she was still processing everything. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. It wasn't about you, she said quietly. I just didn't want to burden you with every little thing. But I get it now. I need to be more open with you about things that matter to both of us. That conversation was a breakthrough. We were finally on the same page. We realized that we had different needs. I needed transparency, and she needed autonomy. It wasn't about one being more important than the other. It was about finding a balance. Healthy communication was the key to understanding where our boundaries lay and how we could respect each other's emotional space. We agreed that from now on, we would have more open discussions about what was happening in our lives. Whether it was about fitness, friendships, or anything else, we would make sure to communicate our feelings before things got complicated. I realized that relationships thrive when both partners feel heard, valued, and respected. That was the turning point for us. Instead of letting small issues fester and grow into bigger problems, we now made it a point to talk things through. Calmly, openly, and honestly. I didn't want to lose sight of what mattered most, our relationship. And sometimes that meant navigating difficult conversations, but doing so with love and understanding. As the days went on, I found myself reflecting more and more on the bigger picture. This wasn't just about a few gym sessions or messages on social media. It was about something deeper. Something that had to do with the very foundation of our relationship, trust. I knew that trust is something that can be built, but it can also be easily fractured if you don't pay attention. My wife's journey toward better health was a wonderful thing. She had committed herself to a goal, and I was proud of her. I wasn't jealous of her progress, but I was starting to feel like I was being left behind. In the past, we had always shared our goals, our triumphs, and our challenges. But now, there was this sense of disconnection, an emotional distance that had crept into our relationship without either of us fully realizing it. We were both changing. She was becoming more independent, embracing a part of herself that was dedicated to her fitness and well-being. And I realized that I was changing too. I had to come to terms with my own feelings, not just about the situation, but about the changes that were happening in our lives. I couldn't keep expecting things to stay the same, especially when we were both evolving. Life wasn't static, relationships weren't static. Growth, both as individuals and as a couple, required a level of adaptability. The challenge for me, though, was how to embrace her change while also staying connected. I didn't want her to feel like she couldn't pursue her fitness goals on her own, but I also didn't want to lose the emotional connection we shared. I realized that trust had to work both ways. She had to trust that I could handle the changes, and I had to trust that her journey wouldn't take her away from me. The truth was, change is inevitable. We don't stay the same person forever, and neither does our relationship. As we move through life, we grow, we adapt, and sometimes that growth leads us down different paths. But growth doesn't have to mean growing apart. If anything, it's an opportunity to grow together. So I made a decision. I decided to trust in our relationship and trust in her. I could no longer hold on to the fear that I was being replaced or pushed aside. We had talked about our boundaries and communicated openly about our needs. Now, it was time for me to accept that the way we navigated our relationship might have to change, just as we were changing as people. I realized that I had been afraid of losing her. I didn't want to be left behind as she pursued her goals. But what I didn't understand at first was that her success didn't diminish my value in her life. Her journey was hers to take, but it was also an opportunity for us to find new ways of connecting and supporting each other. The more I thought about it, the more I understood that trust isn't about control. It's not about keeping someone close because you fear losing them. It's about letting them grow and trusting that they'll come back to you. Emotionally, mentally, and physically, because of the bond you've built together. I knew now that the true test of our relationship wasn't how we handled this situation. It was how we dealt with the inevitable changes that life would continue to throw our way. Change was going to happen whether I was ready or not. But trust, communication, and respect, those were the things that would keep us strong, no matter where life took us. As I look back on everything that's happened, I realized that this situation wasn't just about the gym, the man my wife met, or even the deleted messages. It was about trust. How it's built, tested, and sometimes even broken. But more importantly, it was about learning how to trust again, not just in my wife, but in the strength of our relationship. I've learned that trust isn't a one-time decision. It's something you work at every day through communication, understanding, and respect. When the situation first arose, I was consumed by doubt and insecurity. I wanted to control things, to make sure nothing happened that would threaten what we had. But as time passed, I realized that trust doesn't work that way. Trust isn't about control, it's about allowing someone the space to be themselves, to grow, and to change, knowing that they'll always come back to you. I think the most important lesson I've learned is that change doesn't have to mean loss. My wife's pursuit of her fitness goals wasn't a threat to our relationship, it was an opportunity for us to grow in new ways. Yes, there were moments of discomfort, moments where I felt like I was losing her, but those moments forced me to confront my own fears and insecurities. And that was something I needed to do for myself and for our relationship. I've learned that trusting someone again means letting go of the past, the doubts, the questions, and the things that make you feel insecure. It means trusting that your partner will continue to be there for you, even when they're changing, even when they're stepping outside the boundaries of what you're used to. I didn't want to be the partner who held my wife back. I wanted to be the partner who celebrated her growth, supported her ambitions, and trusted her enough to let her pursue her goals without feeling like I was losing her. This whole situation taught me the importance of communication. How crucial it is to voice our concerns before they turn into something bigger. How necessary it is to share our feelings openly and honestly. I've learned that the more we communicate, the stronger our bond becomes. Have you ever faced a situation in your relationship where trust was tested? How did you navigate it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about how we can all learn to trust again and support each other through life's changes. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories and relationship advice.